You don't look like you belong here." The sentence cut through the grandeur of the Langford Club's ballroom, making dozens of guests turn their heads toward the source. Standing proudly on the polished wooden floor was Isabella Crane, the 28-year-old daughter of tech billionaire Victor Crane. Her eyes narrowed in a mocking smile. She didn't need to whisper. She wanted the entire room to hear her. In the corner lit by warm golden lamps, Maya Ellison slowly lifted her head. The brown-skinned woman in a coral red wrap dress wore nothing with a luxury logo. One hand rested on a small rolling suitcase, the other still holding a glowing phone screen. She gave no reply, made no extra movement, only a silence so composed it seemed she was measuring the heartbeat of the entire room. Beyond the massive glass panels, Manhattan's skyline glittered in the night. Inside, the party of the ultra-rich went on, champagne flutes clinking, jazz humming, toasts drifting like smoke. But all of it collapsed in an instant, replaced by the heavy silence after Isabella's sneer. The young woman tilted her chin, her voice ringing clear. "Don't tell me I'm the only one thinking it. She's no speaker, no journalist, so who brought an intern in here?" A few laughs broke out. A man at the bar cleared his throat in a strained chuckle. An older woman set down her glass, eyes sliding away. The silence of the room was not protest, but complicity, the silence of power choosing sides. Maya did not react. Her chest rose and fell slowly, her eyes unblinking. She knew those stares well. They were not strangers' stares. They were memories, the inheritance of a lifetime of being underestimated. Yet, instead of resisting, Maya let the contempt hang in the air, allowed it to erode the worth of the one who had spoken. Her silence was not passive. It was gunpowder waiting for a spark. The elevator bell chimed, steel doors sliding open as new guests entered. One of them recognized Maya for a fleeting second, then quickly looked away, as if afraid of knowing too much. Isabella caught that glance, and emboldened, waved her hand in mockery. Maybe she's a cosmetics rep, trying to pitch products at $1 billion party? This time, more laughter burst out, polite but cold, like needles pricking the air. Only one small sound cut through, the light tap of Maya's fingernail against her phone screen, a single click, then silence again. Isabella turned away, satisfied. To her, it was a small victory, humiliating an outsider. But in truth, it was only the opening move in a game Maya had prepared long ago. No one in the room understood that the woman they dismissed was the very reason this party existed. 3 years earlier, when Crane Holdings teetered on the edge of collapse, only Orion Capital, the fund Maya co-founded, had agreed to pour in $2.7 billion to save it. On paper, she was a silent partner, but in reality, she was the key to every vault, the lifeblood of every project being discussed that night. From across the room, Ethan Rowe, 34, special advisor to Crane Holdings, approached. His navy suit fit perfectly, tie neatly knotted, eyes narrowed with calculation. He stopped before Maya, his voice polite yet dripping with superiority. "Madam, this area is for true shareholders only. If you are not part of the organizing committee or the press, I must ask you to leave." Maya did not turn. She didn't need to. She only glanced over her shoulder, her eyes sharp as a blade. Misreading the look, Ethan pressed on. "I'm certain your name isn't on the CRM list." From afar, Isabella smirked, raising her glass as if waiting for the moment of expulsion. A few guests whispered, "Yes, check the list." Maya turned fully to face Ethan. Her voice was low, steady, each word slicing the air like a scalpel. "Does this place have rules about faces, or only about clothing?" Ethan froze. The murmurs died instantly, as though the room had been drained of air. Isabella burst out laughing, desperate to shatter the tension. She must have read too many reports and thinks she's an expert. Come on. Someone show her the way down to the second floor, where the press belongs. Laughter followed again, but this time it was warped, trembling. Maya said nothing more. She lifted her phone to her chest and glanced at the screen. There was only one message from Lena Torres, her operations director. "Red file is ready, just waiting for your command." Maya closed her eyes briefly. The sting of being belittled was no stranger to her. But this time she carried more than memories. She carried the weight of real power. And in that chandelier-lit ballroom, a silent storm of authority was already gathering, born from silence. As the warped laughter still echoed faintly through the room, another pair of eyes was watching closely. Clara Nguyen, a 23-year-old junior analyst, stood tucked behind the curtain, holding a tablet with the list of partners and shareholders. She was new, unfamiliar with the unspoken rules of this world, but what Clara had was an instinct for spotting the unusual. She saw Maya standing tall in silence, her gaze unwavering against the forest of contemptuous stares. She did not look like an outsider. She did not look like someone being pushed out. The way Maya breathed, the way her finger lightly tapped the glowing phone screen, everything radiated control. Clara shivered. At the center of the ballroom, Isabella grew more triumphant. She leaned toward Ethan, her voice pitched for the whole room to hear. "You see? A complete joke. If she stays any longer, the reputation of Crane Holdings will be stained forever." Laughter followed, thin and forced. But in that very moment, Clara curled her finger and opened the directory on her tablet. A dense list of investors, numbers the size of national GDPs. Then, on the very first line, she saw a name. Maya Ellison, Managing Partner, Co-Founder, Orion Capital. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Her finger trembled as she scrolled down. The description appeared: controlling shareholder, principal investor of $2.7 billion to rescue Crane Holdings in 2020. Blood rushed to her face. Her throat went dry. She looked back at Maya, the woman standing motionless like a monument, enduring ridicule. And suddenly, the pieces fell into place. The silence, the lit phone screen, the steady posture, the detached gaze. None of it was random. None of it was accidental. She was not an outsider. She was the very reason this room existed. Clara lifted her head. For the first time, her eyes met Maya's. In that moment, Maya did not smile, but the look she gave Clara was a silent confirmation. Yes, you've seen it. Meanwhile, Ethan was still trying to assert authority. His tone hardened as he pressed on. "You don't have a badge. You're not on the CRM list. If you don't leave immediately, I will have to call security." Isabella laughed loudly, raising her glass. "That's right. Get her out. The sooner the better." A few guests nodded, waiting for the show to end. But before Ethan could signal, Clara stepped forward. Her hand gripped the tablet tightly, her voice shaky but clear. "Excuse me, Mr. Rowe. Do you even know who she is?" The entire room froze. Dozens of eyes turned toward Clara, the slender young employee with hastily tied black hair. Ethan frowned. "I know she's not an authorized guest." Clara shook her head, her voice steadier now. "She's not just a guest. She's a senior shareholder. She's the co-founder of Orion Capital, the one who saved Crane Holdings with $2.7 billion. The words dropped like a stone into a still pond. No laughter followed. Instead, a wave of murmurs rippled across the ballroom. A man at the bar let his glass slip halfway to the counter. A middle-aged woman covered her mouth and gasped, "Impossible!" From the left rows, a young businessman pulled out his phone, quickly typing into the search bar, "Maya Ellison Orion Capital." Results appeared within seconds. Images of Maya at international conferences, articles from Forbes and the Financial Times. Headlines, "The silent woman behind billion-dollar deals." A male voice whispered, loud enough to carry, She's Maya Ellison." Stunned eyes bore into Maya. Isabella's smile shattered, her lips fumbling. "No, this must be fake. She probably photoshopped a LinkedIn profile." But no one echoed her anymore. A communications director in her 50s, sitting in the corner, let out a dry laugh. "She doesn't need your father's name. She was the safety net your father clung to when the company nearly collapsed." The words ripped through the air. The crowd subtly shifted away from Isabella, not much, but enough to create distance. And at that moment, a small red light blinked. Kevin Marsh, a financial journalist, had raised his camera. Maya glanced at him and lifted a single finger. Kevin understood immediately. He lowered the camera. No recording. Only his earpiece left on. Silence, but controlled. Then for the first time, Maya spoke. Her voice was low, steady. No need to shout. "Mr. Rowe, Miss Crane, would you like to repeat what you just said?" Isabella swallowed hard. Ethan froze. The crowd buzzed. The glow of phones in their hands lit up with headlines confirming Maya's identity. And like a sudden gust of wind, the tide had turned. The air inside the Langford Club ballroom grew thick, as if every molecule was waiting for the next move. All eyes were fixed on Maya Ellison, the woman who only minutes ago had been dismissed as an outsider. Now, her name filled the glowing screens of the wealthy who surrounded her. Isabella Crane's face turned pale, but her arrogant instinct refused to retreat. The champagne glass in her hand trembled, yet her voice still tried to carry bitterness. "This is all a fraud. She's nothing but a puppet. If she were truly important, my father would have mentioned her long ago." The words rang out, but this time there was no echo of laughter, only whispers of unease and glances turned away. Everyone knew that when real power spoke, silence was the safest reaction. Ethan Rowe, still standing close to Maya, swallowed the lump in his throat. His face burned red, sweat beading at his temple, but his tone was firm, as though clinging to whatever authority he thought remained. "I don't care what you claim to be. This room has rules, no badge, no confirmation from the organizers, and you are still an intruder. He pulled a radio from his jacket pocket, his finger trembling slightly. It was the reflex of a man grasping at procedure when true power had slipped from his hands. Maya did not move. She turned her wrist, and her phone lit up, the neat words from Lena Torres clear on the screen. "Red file ready, awaiting final command." Isabella stepped forward half a pace, her eyes flashing with aggression. She thrust her hand toward Maya, her voice shrill and high as if to reassert dominance over the crowd. "Call security. Throw her out immediately. This is a private event, not a stage for imposters to put on a show." A few heads nodded out of habit, but hesitation was obvious. No one wanted to stand in the way of the truth that had just been revealed. Maya slowly turned her gaze toward Isabella. Her eyes held no anger, only a cold, deep stillness, like a mirror reflecting her opponent's smallness. Then her voice rose, low and sharp. "You just touched the most dangerous boundary, Isabella. Not with me. With the future of your own family." The words were soft as breath, but the room shivered. Ethan faltered, his hand still holding the radio mid-air. He saw no fury in Maya's eyes, none of the usual outrage of the humiliated, only the calm certainty of someone holding the keys to end the game. Isabella burst into loud laughter, a hollow sound. "My future. I am a Crane. This name opens every door, while you're just lucky." Maya lifted her phone to her chest and pressed a key. Lena's voice came through the speaker, crisp and precise. "Confirmed. Crane Holdings accounts have been temporarily frozen. Internal transactions locked. Do you want to initiate Phase 1? The room fell silent. Ethan swallowed hard. Isabella froze for a few seconds, before breaking into forced laughter, trying to appear unfazed. "You think you can scare me with cheap digital tricks?" But the crowd did not think so. Phones across the ballroom lit up with alerts. The Crane Holdings internal system had just crashed. A young businessman muttered, "The servers won't connect. Q4 files are gone." A murmur rippled across the hall like waves. Ethan's face went pale. His eyes locked on the glowing radio in his hand, but his finger no longer had the courage to press the call button. He understood perfectly, if Maya could cripple the system with a single signal, then no security could lay a hand on her. Isabella, in panic, clung to what power she thought she had, screaming in a shrill voice, "No, this is just coincidence. None of you should believe her. My father will be here any moment. He will set this straight." But her words carried no weight anymore. They fell flat into the air, swallowed by the shifting eyes that were already turning toward Maya. Maya did not advance, nor retreat. She stood still in the center, her breath steady. Then, in a calm voice loud enough for all to hear, she spoke. "Real power does not need to shout. It only needs a signature." Isabella swallowed hard, her heart pounding wildly. For the first time, she realized the title of heiress was no longer a shield of protection. It was a burden, a sandcastle collapsing under the tide. Ethan lowered his head, his hand dropping the radio. In that instant, he knew he had chosen the wrong side. And the ballroom, where moments ago a brown-skinned woman in a coral red dress had been mocked by all, now fell into suffocating silence. For everyone understood, the storm had just begun, and Maya Ellison stood at its center. Leather shoes struck against the gleaming wooden floor. 2 Langford Club security guards entered, broad-shouldered, cold-eyed, their movements sharp, as if they had handled hundreds of unwanted intruders before. The crowd stirred, parting to form a straight path toward Maya. Isabella's lips curved into a triumphant smile, her eyes gleaming as though she had just been rescued from quicksand. "Finally! Take her out. Not through the main hall. Use the service exit in the back. No one here needs this spectacle any longer." Her words fell over the ballroom like an order. Some guests lowered their heads, avoiding Maya's gaze, as if reassuring themselves that they were not involved. The taller guard stepped forward, his voice low and calm but firm. "Ma'am, please come with us." Maya did not blink. She stood tall, her shoulders still as stone. In her hand, the phone glowed silently. From the other end, Lena Torres's voice rang out, clear and steady. "Protocol primed, just one word from you." Isabella crossed her arms, smiling with disdain, muttering loud enough for many to hear. "Finally over. An unknown dares to challenge the Crane family? Ridiculous." The guard lifted his hand, reaching for Maya's elbow. And in that very instant, the room stopped breathing. Maya turned slowly, her gaze slicing through the air like ice. Her voice rose, low and precise, each word nailed to the wooden floor. "Stop. If you touch me, from this moment forward, that will be liability." One heartbeat passed. Then the room shuddered. Ethan Rowe froze, his hand still gripping the radio. He knew better than anyone what that word meant. Liability, legal responsibility. In a room full of journalists, lawyers, and partners, a wrongful touch against a controlling shareholder was no small mistake. It was evidence, a fatal blow that could drag an entire corporation into court. The guard hesitated. His hand hung mid-air, then withdrew, uncertain. The second guard glanced at his partner, then around the room, as if waiting for orders from above. Isabella let out a bitter laugh, trying to shatter the tension. "You're frightening them with cheap legal jargon. Call your lawyer here. Let's see if they dare show up." Maya did not look at Isabella. She raised the phone closer to her ear, her voice soft as a whisper. "Lena, Phase 1. Send the entire red file to the legal department and the chairman of the board of Crane Holdings. Timestamp it immediately." A beat later, Lena's reply came, cold and sharp. "Done. All documents have been delivered to legal. The board received the notice at 8:14 p.m. A heavy silence blanketed the ballroom. Then, one by one, phones buzzed inside pockets. Messages, emails, alerts. An elderly businessman stammered, "My God, the red file! Reports of internal misconduct just went to the entire board." Isabella's face drained of color. The champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. The sound was like a death knell to her arrogance. Maya tilted her head slightly, and for the first time that night, she smiled. Not a mocking smile, but the smile of someone who had waited for the exact moment to turn the final card. "Miss Crane," Maya said, her voice deep, like the undertone of a funeral march. "I don't need my lawyers here. I am the one who signed the lease for this very ballroom. And now, everything has been sent to your father's board." Ethan shuddered. He felt the shift in the air, power flowing away from the Crane family and gathering around Maya Ellison. A few guests stepped back from Isabella, creating an invisible but undeniable distance. From the far corner, Kevin Marsh, the financial journalist, raised his camera once more. This time, he did not lower it. The lens captured Isabella frozen in place, eyes wide, hands trembling. And Maya? She turned slightly toward the guards, her voice firm yet calm. "If you still intend to escort me out, be prepared to give your testimony in court. Because then the question will be, why was a controlling shareholder forcibly removed from the very space she financed?" The two guards exchanged glances, then slowly stepped back. The crowd murmured. A banking executive whispered, "She doesn't need to shout. She only needed one word: liability." And everything turned. Isabella retreated, her lips quivering. But the most terrifying thing was not the absence of mocking laughter. It was the silence. Silence like a verdict already delivered. And at the center of the power storm, Maya Ellison still stood tall, her coral red dress blazing like the mark of a flame that could not be extinguished. The real battle had just begun. The Langford Club ballroom was so silent that even the jazz music from the corner faltered off key. No one dared to move. The two security guards who had just stepped back now stood uncertain, hesitation plain on their faces. The only thing still echoing in the air was the residue of a single word: liability. Isabella Crane swallowed hard, her face pale. She could no longer muster a smile, yet instinct pushed her to fight back. She stumbled backward, leaning against a gold-trimmed leather chair, and screamed in desperation, "Don't listen to her! This is just a performance! She has no real authority." But no one replied. The wealthy guests who had laughed in complicity only moments ago now avoided Isabella's gaze, as if shunning a sinking ship. Maya stood tall, her eyes cold and sharp, her hand lifting the glowing phone. Lena Torres's voice rang clear in her ear. "Board chair has confirmed receipt of the red file. They are in an emergency session. Protocol 2 awaiting your command." Maya looked up, her lips curling into a quiet smile that was enough to tilt the entire room. Then her voice carried, low yet resonant, each word falling like metal striking marble. "My name is Maya Ellison. I am the CEO, founder, and managing partner of Orion Capital. And for the past 3 years," she paused, her gaze sweeping across the frozen faces in the room, "I have been the controlling shareholder of Crane Holdings." The sound broke like glass. Some gasped wordlessly. A middle-aged businessman dropped his phone to the floor. At the back, a financial journalist whispered, "My God, she is the lifeline of this company." Maya continued, her voice never raised, yet dense with authority. "I am the one who approved the $2.7 billion that saved this company from bankruptcy. I signed the contracts your father, Isabella, paraded around at conferences. And I am also the one with the right to take it all back." Isabella staggered, her lips trembling. "No, impossible." My father would never allow this." Ethan Rowe, standing nearby, sweat pouring down his brow, tried to interject, his voice unsteady. But the binding clauses, the contracts, no one can cancel everything so instantly." Maya tilted her head, her gaze cutting like a blade. Mr. Rowe, have you forgotten? Who wrote those clauses? A gasp rippled through the hall. Hands rose to mouths as realization struck. She was not just an investor, she was the architect of the very legal framework upon which Crane Holdings depended. Her phone lit up again. A new notification appeared. Protocol 2 activated. All internal communication channels of Crane Holdings have been locked. Financial dashboard, offline. Partner portal, error 503. Maya's eyes swept the room as she spoke with the calmness of announcing the weather. As of this moment, the entire data infrastructure of Crane Holdings has been locked by me. No one here retains access. Chaos erupted immediately. A man shouted, "My email system just froze." A woman clutched her head. "The entire core plan is gone." "Dear God!" Isabella screamed, her voice cracking. "Lies! You have no authority. You can't." But just then, the LED screen at the far end of the hall lit up. The face of Victor Crane, Isabella's father, appeared from a secure video call. His voice was hoarse, seething with anger. "What the hell is going on? Who authorized my system to be shut down?" In that instant, every eye turned back to Maya. She stood tall, calm, lifting her phone to eye level, the glow reflecting across her face. On the LED screen, a line of text appeared beneath Victor Crane's image. Action executed by Maya Ellison, Orion Capital. Status: full withdrawal initiated. Victor froze in shock. Isabella stumbled back another step, her pupils dilating, her breath ragged. Maya looked up, her voice cutting cold. "Mr. Crane, no one authorized it. I don't need permission. I simply signed. And my signature is power." The crowd exploded in whispers. Some raised their phones to record, others whispered frantically to colleagues, faces drained of color. Maya lowered her phone, her eyes locking onto Isabella, and delivered a final line like a blade. "You mocked my presence. But the truth is, without me, this room never existed." The space collapsed into silence. For the first time that night, Isabella Crane had no words, and the crowd, those who had laughed just minutes earlier, now stood frozen, trembling before the moment when an empire was erased in its own ballroom. On the LED screen, Victor Crane's face flushed red with rage, yet in his eyes flickered a glint of fear. He roared, his voice cracking like a broken command. "Get her out! Immediately! This is my event! My company!" But no one in the room moved. The two security guards glanced at each other, sweat trickling down their foreheads, then slowly lowered their hands. They understood. One wrong move, and they would not only be fired, they would be sued, and their careers destroyed. Maya Ellison drew a slow breath. In the silence, it sounded like a hammer striking the chessboard. Then she lifted her head, her gaze fixed on the screen, straight into Victor's eyes. "Mr. Crane, I do not need to argue. Everything was decided the moment you took my money 3 years ago. Today," she paused, her eyes sweeping across the ballroom, over the tense faces watching her, "I am officially withdrawing all capital from Crane Holdings." The room exploded. Shouts, ringing phones, chairs clattering to the ground filled the air. A young businessman frantically opened his laptop, only to see the message. "Axiom node disconnected. Access denied." He cursed, his face drained of color. A middle-aged woman clutched her head, whispering, "Dear God, our entire portfolio is gone." On the screen, Victor Crane shouted, his voice choked with desperation, "You can't do this! This is destruction!" Maya tilted her head, her eyes sharp as steel. "No, Victor. This is called ownership. I am not destroying anything. I am only taking back what was mine all along." Isabella stood frozen, her lips trembling, struggling to form words, but only choking on broken sobs. In that moment, she realized the painful truth. All the power, arrogance, and glory she had wrapped around herself were nothing more than a thin veil hiding the fact that the entire Crane dynasty had been breathing only through Maya. The crowd began to shift. A female bank executive, who had remained silent when Isabella mocked Maya earlier, suddenly stepped forward and tapped her glass to call for attention. Her voice rang out, hoarse but firm. "Miss Ellison, if Crane Holdings no longer has your backing, we would like to discuss working directly with Orion Capital." The ballroom trembled. Another voice rose, quicker this time. "So do I. My company is ready to pull out of its deal with Crane to work with you." Then more voices followed, each one a dagger stabbing deeper into Victor and Isabella. They stood there, helpless, as those who once fawned over them turned their backs without hesitation. Maya remained silent, not rushing to answer. Her silence itself became a force, drawing the room into her gravity, leaving everyone trembling in suspense. At the back, Kevin Marsh, the financial journalist, whispered into the lens of his live stream, "You are witnessing a transfer of power unfolding right now. This is not a shareholder dispute, this is a transfusion." The viewer count skyrocketed. 10,000, 20,000, 40,000. Comments flooded in. "She owns it all. The silent queen of capital. Legacy in motion." Victor Crane struggled to regain control, his voice ragged and hoarse. "Listen to me, all of you. If you dare betray Crane Holdings, your contracts will be terminated. I will." But he never finished. The screen went black. A message appeared. "Connection lost. Authorization revoked." Victor had been officially cut off from the very meeting he had initiated. A dry laugh echoed from the crowd. Not laughter of joy, but the bitter realization that the old order had collapsed. Isabella retreated to a corner, her body trembling, her eyes clouded with panic. Only one thought pounded in her mind. "I have lost everything, in a single night." Maya stepped forward half a pace, her voice low yet resonant, carrying across the room. "You ask what I want. I want no apologies. I need no praise. I only want you to remember one thing. Respect is not a privilege. It is a foundation, and those who forget that will disappear." The crowd bowed their heads, this time not out of momentary fear, but in recognition of true power. As Maya lowered her phone, silence returned. But it was no longer the silence of contempt, it was the silence of submission. And in that moment, the transfer of power was complete. The ballroom was as silent as the aftermath of a storm. Glasses of red wine froze mid-air, whispers died out, and only eyes remained, all fixed on Maya Ellison. Isabella Crane sank into her chair, her trembling hands clinging to the edge of the table as if it were the last lifeline. Victor had vanished from the screen, his connection severed, his furious shouts lingering only as a shattered echo. Maya stood tall, her composure unsettlingly calm, as though she had not just shaken an empire worth billions. The coral-red dress shimmered beneath the crystal chandelier, no longer deemed out of place, but instead becoming the only color the entire room would remember. A long pause stretched, then suddenly, a single sound. A clap. It came from the far end of the hall, from an older woman in a navy gown, her silver hair neatly pinned. She said nothing, only rose and clapped again, louder this time. Another followed, then another. Within less than a minute, the entire ballroom thundered with applause. It was not the polite clapping of a gala, but heavy, cathartic applause, as if they were cleansing themselves of the guilt of their 40 minutes of complicit silence. Isabella lifted her head, her eyes wild. She looked around and saw those who once exalted her, now applauding Maya. The sound shredded her last strand of pride, leaving her choked and voiceless. Ethan Rowe stood frozen, his hands limp at his sides. In that instant, he knew every chance of advancement tied to the cranes had gone up in smoke, and deep in his eyes flickered a glimmer of regret. If only I had not chosen the wrong side. Maya did not smile, nor did she lift her hand to acknowledge them. She simply nodded slightly, her gaze steady, as though the applause was not for her, but for the truth that had just been revealed. Then, with slow but unwavering steps, she walked toward the glass doors leading to the corridor. Each step carved itself into the memory of those who had once scorned her. The jazz music had stopped. The applause continued, rhythmic and unrelenting, rising into the vaulted ceiling of the Langford Club. Guests stood to their feet, following her as though sending off a queen departing her throne, with only one difference. This throne she did not need to sit on, because it had always belonged to her. When Maya's hand touched the door, the golden light of the corridor spilled in, wrapping around her figure. Before stepping through, she paused, turning back to face the hall one final time. Her voice rang out, not loud, not rushed, but clear and hard as steel. Power does not need to shout. It only needs to be respected. Remember that. The words fell heavy, like a sentence pronounced. A young journalist, Harper Lynn, gripping the phone that was live streaming, whispered, "That was not just a statement. That was a legacy." Maya turned and walked away, the door closing behind her. The applause continued, though the person it was meant for had already left. It echoed like an oath of loyalty to a new order, one she had just built with calm and a single signature. In the hallway, the golden light stretched across the marble floor like a gilded path. Maya walked on, her face neither arrogant nor triumphant, only serene, her eyes fixed on the distance. The phone buzzed in her hand, a new message from Lena Torres. "Exit confirmed. Market reacting. Hashtag respect for Ellison, now trending #1 worldwide." Maya glanced at it briefly, then locked the screen. She needed no further confirmation. What mattered was not social media trends, but the quiet transformation already taking root in each person left inside that room. Within them, a seed had been planted. The truth that respect is not a gift granted by the powerful, but the mandatory foundation of power itself. Behind her, Isabella remained slumped in her chair, the sound of applause striking her like hammer blows. She knew with certainty that from this night on, the name Crane would no longer be a guarantee. And when people spoke of tonight, they would not speak of her fall, but of Maya Ellison's rise. The outer doors opened. The night wind of the city swept in, carrying the metallic tang and dampness of Manhattan. Maya inhaled deeply and stepped down the marble stairs. A sleek black car was waiting, its door opening in silent welcome. She did not rush to enter. She paused, gazing at the night sky where the city lights blazed, insignificant before the stillness in her eyes. Then, without another word, Maya Ellison stepped inside. The door closed. The car rolled forward, leaving the Langford Club behind with applause that had not yet ceased. That night, history did not write another chapter. It rewrote the entire book. The black sedan rolled slowly down Manhattan Avenue. Outside the window, the neon lights of skyscrapers shimmered like waves of light crashing through the night. The city roared with noise, yet inside the car a heavy silence prevailed. Maya Ellison sat back, her eyes fixed on the distance. Her hand rested loosely on her phone, its screen dark, though it seemed to reflect the battle she had just won. A battle not with shouts or flashy displays of power, but with silence and precise timing. A familiar voice came through, Lena Torres over the Bluetooth, low but urgent. "Maya, it's done. The market shook hard but is stabilizing. Hashtag #respect for Ellison is holding #1 worldwide." The Crane board just held an emergency meeting and confirmed loss of control. The international press is already breaking headlines. We did it. Maya closed her eyes gently. A deep breath escaped her, not out of exhaustion, but as if shedding the weight she had carried for 3 long years. Her voice came, soft yet firm. "No, Lena. We didn't do it. They revealed their true face. I only held up the mirror." Outside, the traffic light turned red. The car stopped. A group of pedestrians crossed, a few recognizing Maya's silhouette through the glass. They pointed, whispered, raised their phones. But Maya did not lower the window, nor did she look away. She sat upright, her gaze calm. In her ear, Lena hesitated. "Maya, there's something I've always wanted to ask. Why did you stay silent for so long? You could have revealed yourself the moment Isabella insulted you. But you waited until they humiliated themselves in front of everyone." There was a pause. Then Maya turned her head slightly, her eyes reflecting the golden streetlight outside. "Because, Lena, real power never rushes to prove itself. It waits for the moment when arrogance buries itself under its own contempt. When they belittled me, they only exposed their own smallness. And when I stood still, that silence became the mirror for the world." Lena was quiet for a few seconds, then exhaled. "You know something? Today, you didn't just dismantle the Cranes. You rewrote the way people understand power." Maya tilted her head, the corner of her lips curving slightly, not in triumph, but in the weariness of someone who had endured the long road. "I don't want them to remember me as the victor. I want them to remember that dignity is not a commodity. It is the only crown that can never be taken. And if I leave behind anything, it will be that truth." The light turned green. The car surged forward, leaving behind the honking horns, the restless city, and the Langford Club, sinking like a wrecked ship. Online, the storm raged. Financial networks scrambled for headlines. Maya Ellison pulls 2.7 billion. Crane Holdings plunges into crisis. A single tweet spread like wildfire. She dismantled an empire in silence. That's legacy. Inside the car, Maya unlocked her phone, glanced at the flood of notifications. Forbes, CNBC, Financial Times, all requesting interviews. She tapped dismiss all. The screen went dark again, reflecting only her face, serene and steady. Lena's voice returned, quieter now, tinged with emotion. Maya, you just did something a generation will remember. But how do you feel right now? Maya turned her gaze outward, where Manhattan blazed like a labyrinth of light. She whispered, almost to herself, I don't feel bigger. I just feel in place. For years, they made me believe I was the outsider in the wrong room. But tonight, I proved the room was never wrong. They were, for thinking I didn't belong. The car ascended the overpass, revealing the city stretching endlessly ahead, a sea of lights. Maya closed her eyes, one thought resonating clear as a bell inside her mind. Power doesn't prove itself. It just decides when to be seen. Outside, Manhattan roared on. But inside the car, Maya Ellison's silence had become a declaration with no symbol, no rallying cry, only presence. And that presence tonight had rewritten the definition of power and dignity. In the glittering world of finance and power, people often believe the loudest voice is the strongest. But Maya Ellison proved the opposite. Sometimes it is silence that becomes the most resounding symphony. She did not need to shout to be heard. She only needed one moment to make the world bow its head. If you believe that dignity is the true foundation of power, hit like, subscribe to join us, and leave a comment with just one word: respect.